I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I was married to Melissa for 7 years. For the most part, things were good. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we were best friends at the core, or at least I thought we were. About a year ago, things began to change. Melissa became distant, preoccupied with her phone and less interested in our conversations. It started slowly, little things I brushed off as life getting busy. Work stress, family commitments, you know how it goes. But as time went on, the signs became more evident. She would cancel plans last minute, claiming she was too tired or had a headache. I found myself sitting alone at restaurants waiting for her to arrive, only for her to send a text saying she couldn't make it. This was unusual for her. Melissa loved our date nights. There was something off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I tried to talk to her about it, but every time I brought it up, she became defensive. "You're being paranoid, Jake," she'd say, rolling her eyes. I started to feel like I was the problem. Things reached a boiling point when we decided to try couples counseling. I thought it was a last-ditch effort to fix whatever was wrong between us. I was hopeful. Melissa, however, seemed to go through the motions, just there to appease me. After our sessions, I would sit in the car, waiting for her to finish up, a sense of dread building in my stomach. I was anxious. Something didn't feel right, and I could tell she wasn't being honest during our sessions. Then, one afternoon, it happened. I was on my way home from work a little earlier than usual. I decided to surprise Melissa with her favorite takeout. As I approached our neighborhood, I noticed a car parked outside our house that I didn't recognize. My heart started to race. I pulled into the driveway, and as I stepped out of my car, I saw him, her friend, Brad, whom she'd mentioned a few times. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were just hanging out. But the feeling in my gut told me otherwise. I crept to the window, and what I saw shattered my world. They were sitting on the couch, laughing together and holding hands. My heart sank to my stomach. I felt frozen, unable to move or breathe. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. When they kissed, it felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I went back to my car, and for a moment my mind raced. Should I confront them? Should I just leave? I decided to call a friend, my buddy Mike, to vent and figure out what to do. I was angry, hurt, and betrayed, and the emotions were overwhelming. As I paced outside my car, Mike listened patiently while I ranted about the situation. "You need to confront her, man. You deserve answers," he said firmly. I knew he was right. After our call, I decided to walk into the house. I had to face the music. When I opened the front door, the air felt thick and heavy. Melissa turned to look at me, surprise flashing across her face. "Jake, you're home early," she said, her voice laced with forced cheerfulness. I glanced at Brad, who quickly got up and headed for the door. "I should get going," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Yeah, you should," I said, my voice colder than I intended. As he walked out, I felt the rage boiling within me. "What the hell is going on, Melissa?" I demanded. Her expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. "What are you talking about?" she said, feigning innocence. I could see the cracks in her facade. She knew she had been caught. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "I saw you two together. You weren't just friends. You're cheating on me, aren't you?" The silence that followed was deafening. I watched her face morph from surprise to guilt and then back to anger. "You're being ridiculous, Jake. Nothing happened. You're just making accusations because you're jealous." She shot back, her tone dismissive. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "Jealous? I'm not jealous. I'm heartbroken. You've been lying to me." Melissa crossed her arms and looked away. "You wouldn't understand," she muttered, but her eyes betrayed her. I could see the truth hidden behind her defensive walls, and it broke me a little more with each passing second. As the confrontation continued, the atmosphere in our living room felt charged with unresolved emotions. I was desperate for clarity, for the truth to finally break through the lies. "You're right, I don't understand. Why would you even start seeing someone else instead of talking to me?" I shot back, my voice trembling with hurt. Melissa sighed, rolling her eyes as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "You wouldn't get it, Jake. We've been in couples counseling for months, and it felt like you weren't even trying. I just wanted someone who would listen, someone who could make me feel good," she said, her voice laced with a strange mixture of anger and guilt. "Someone who could make you feel good," I echoed, incredulous. So you thought it was okay to just cheat on your husband because you weren't feeling good. That's your excuse. At this point, I was on the edge of losing my sanity. I had known Melissa for years, and this wasn't the woman I married. The woman who stood in front of me was defensive and vicious, and the hurtful words were pouring out like a torrent. I had expected tears, maybe even a hint of remorse, but all I got was a cold, unfeeling facade. "Jake, you don't understand how hard it is for me to feel this way," she snapped, finally dropping the act. "I didn't plan for this to happen, but I met someone who actually cares about me. You're so wrapped up in your own world that you didn't notice me slipping away." Her words cut deeper than any knife could. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. I had always tried to be the supportive partner, focusing on her needs while balancing my own. "I can't believe you're blaming me for this. I've been here trying to make things work. But you chose to betray me instead," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. She crossed her arms tighter, eyes narrowing as if the confrontation was a game. "Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have looked for excitement elsewhere," she spat. And at that moment, it felt like she was twisting the knife even further. I took a step back, my heart racing. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about the fundamental breakdown of our relationship, the years spent building something that had crumbled in an instant. "Excitement. Is that all this was to you? Just a thrill?" Melissa huffed, shaking her head. "You wouldn't understand. You're just mad because your pride is hurt. You're not thinking about how I feel." "Feel?" I yelled, the anger bubbling over. "You think I don't care about your feelings? I've been there every step of the way, every date night, every counseling session. I've tried to understand you." She stepped closer, her voice suddenly softer but still filled with contempt. "And you expect me to believe that? You don't know what it's like to feel trapped in a marriage that doesn't fulfill you anymore." "Trapped? You chose to walk away." I shot back, my heart aching with the realization that the woman I loved was slipping further away. It felt like talking to a wall, and with every accusation she threw at me, it became harder to see the road ahead. In a moment of vulnerability, I asked, "Do you even love him?" The question hung in the air, heavy and bitter. Melissa hesitated, and for a split second her bravado faltered. "I do." "No," she finally admitted, her tone shifting to a whisper. "I just wanted someone who would notice me, who would make me feel alive again. I didn't mean for things to go this far." Those words hit me like a freight train. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness wash over me. "And what about us? What about our life together?" I asked, my voice breaking. She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't know, Jake, I just felt so lonely." Her admission was gut-wrenching, and I realized how deep the betrayal ran. I had been there, but I had failed to see the cracks forming in our foundation. Everything I thought we had built together was now crumbling away, and I stood helpless as the walls fell down around me. "I can't do this," I said, my voice shaking. "I can't stay here and act like everything is fine when it's clearly not. We're not okay, and it's clear you've made your choice." Melissa opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "No, don't. I need to think. I can't be around you, not now." With those final words, I turned and walked out of the living room, my heart heavy with grief and anger. I needed space, time to process everything that had just happened. I had never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, and as I stepped outside, the cool evening air hit my face, grounding me in the reality of my shattered world. I knew I had to figure out what came next, but for now I just needed to breathe. I stepped outside, the evening air a sharp contrast to the chaos swirling in my mind. I walked aimlessly around the block, my heart pounding in my chest. The streets felt eerily quiet, reflecting the turmoil I felt inside. I couldn't wrap my head around the betrayal I had just witnessed. Melissa had been my partner, my confidant, and now she was someone I didn't recognize. As I walked, I replayed our conversation over and over in my head. I just wanted someone who would notice me. Those words echoed relentlessly, driving home the reality that I had failed her in some way. But how could I have been more attentive? I had been there fighting for us, trying to keep our relationship afloat while she had been sneaking behind my back. I found myself at a park, the swings creaking softly in the wind. I sat down, staring into the distance as memories flooded my mind. I thought of our wedding day, the laughter we shared, the promises we made. How had it come to this? I felt a mixture of anger and sadness wash over me, intertwining into a knot of pain in my chest. After what felt like an eternity, I pulled out my phone and called Mike again. "Dude, I really messed up," I said as soon as he picked up. "What happened?" he asked, his tone switching to one of concern. "I caught Melissa cheating on me. I confronted her and it was just, I don't know, man, I never thought it would come to this." "Shit, Jake, I'm so sorry. Do you need me to come over?" "No, I just need to think. I'm still processing everything," I replied, feeling the weight of the situation settling even deeper. I can't believe she would do this to me. We had plans, a future. Yeah, but it sounds like she wasn't on the same page as you, Mike said, his voice firm but sympathetic. "You deserve better than this. You've been trying to make it work and she was off with some guy instead." I sighed heavily. I just don't know what to do next. Should I leave her? Should I fight for the marriage? I feel lost. "Give yourself some time. You don't have to make a decision right now. Just focus on what you need, not what she needs. You deserve to be happy too." I hung up feeling slightly better but still overwhelmed. I decided to head back home, knowing I couldn't run away from the truth forever. I needed to confront this head-on. When I walked back into the house, it was dark. Melissa had turned off the lights and the silence felt oppressive. I made my way to the bedroom, where I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her phone. She looked up as I entered, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. "I didn't expect you back so soon," she said, her voice almost a whisper. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to come. "We need to talk." "What more is there to say? You already know how I feel," Melissa replied, her tone defensive again. "I know you're hurting, but we can't just ignore this. You cheated on me, we can't just sweep it under the rug," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Don't you think I know that? I didn't want this to happen, I didn't plan it." She shot back, her eyes flashing with anger. "Didn't plan it? You had to have made a choice at some point," I replied, frustration seeping into my voice. "You chose him over me. You chose to lie to me. How can you sit there and act like you're the victim?" Her face hardened, and for a moment I thought she might break down, but instead she pushed herself off the bed and began packing the room, her back to me. "You don't understand what it's like to feel alone. I tried to talk to you. I tried to make you see how I felt," she said, her voice rising. "I thought we were working on things in counseling. I thought you were trying." I countered, my anger flaring. "I was, but it felt like you weren't even listening. You were just going through the motions." She shouted, her hands gesturing wildly. "I needed someone to validate me, to make me feel wanted again." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt so surreal. "So you thought cheating was the answer. You didn't think to communicate with me, to tell me how you truly felt." "I thought I could fix things on my own. I didn't want to burden you," she responded, her voice breaking. It was painful to see her like this, yet I felt a mix of sympathy and anger. "You've burdened me with this. You've betrayed me. You've put me in a position where I have to face this reality alone, and it hurts," I said quietly. Melissa looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes, but it was fleeting. "What do you want from me, Jake? Do you want me to apologize? Because I can't change what happened." "No, I do want an apology. I want honesty. I want to know if there's any part of you that still loves me, that wants to make this work," I said, my voice trembling slightly. She took a deep breath, her facade cracking. "I don't know, Jake. I don't know if I can go back to how things were. I don't know if I can forgive myself for what I did." I felt my heart sink further. "Then maybe we need to reevaluate everything. We can't move forward if you can't be honest with yourself or with me." In that moment, the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. We were at a crossroads, and I had to decide if I was willing to fight for a marriage that felt more like a battle than a partnership. I thought about everything we had built, all the dreams we had shared, but I also considered my own self-worth. How much was I willing to endure for someone who had chosen to betray me? The silence stretched between us, heavy with uncertainty and unspoken words. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey toward understanding what love and commitment truly meant for both of us. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. I found myself stuck in a limbo, neither able to move forward nor willing to look back. After that confrontation, Melissa and I barely spoke. There was an unspoken agreement between us. She was guilty, I was hurt, and neither of us knew how to navigate this new landscape of betrayal and broken trust. I tried to keep myself busy with work, burying my head in projects, hoping that the distraction would help me forget the pain. But no amount of work could drown out the memories of Melissa and Brad together, laughing on our sofa, sharing moments that should have been ours. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Every time I came home, the silence felt deafening. I would find Melissa sitting in the living room, her eyes glued to her phone, the distance between us expanding with every passing day. One evening, I returned home late from work, exhausted and emotionally drained. I opened the door to find Melissa still awake, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine in her hand. She looked up as I walked in, her expression a mixture of sadness and something else I couldn't quite place, regret perhaps. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hey," I replied, keeping my tone flat. I walked past her, heading toward the kitchen. I needed a drink, something to cut through the tension lingering in the air like smoke. "Do you think we can talk?" she asked, her words hanging between us like a fragile thread. I paused, my back still turned to her. "What is there left to say, Melissa? You've made your feelings clear." I know, but I want to explain. I want to understand how we got here," she said, her voice shaking ever so slightly. I turned to face her, the anger bubbling back to the surface. "You think you can just explain away the fact that you cheated on me, that you betrayed my trust? I don't need an explanation, I need honesty." "I'm trying to be honest," she exclaimed, frustration creeping into her tone. "You don't realize how hard this has been for me too. I didn't want this, I didn't want to hurt you. I felt my heart harden, but you did. You chose to hurt me. You chose to be with someone else instead of coming to me. You made that choice." Tears welled in her eyes, and for a moment I almost felt sympathy for her. "I was lost, Jake. I was so caught up in my own feelings of inadequacy that I didn't know how to communicate with you. And then Brad came along, and it felt like he was the only one who understood me." "So this is all his fault now? You're just going to pass the blame?" I asked, my voice rising. "No, that's not what I meant. I made my own choices and I regret them, but I want to move forward if you'll let me," she pleaded, her voice cracking. I took a deep breath, trying to keep the flood of emotions from overwhelming me. "You want to move forward, but how can we when there's no trust left? How can I look at you and not see him?" She looked down, her hands trembling. "I don't want you to think of him. I want us to rebuild if we can." "Rebuild what exactly?" "Relationship based on lies, a foundation that feels like quicksand." I shook my head. "I don't even know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I want to." The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I knew I needed to make a decision, and I felt the weight of that decision bearing down on me. "Maybe we need some time apart," I finally said, my voice steady but gentle. "I can't keep living in this limbo. I need space to think about what I want." Melissa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll pack a bag and stay with my sister for a while." As she walked away, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. I was free from the immediate tension, but the thought of her leaving carved a hole in my chest. As she packed her things, I couldn't help but think about the life we had built together, the dreams we had shared, and how easily it all unraveled. After she left, I sat in the darkness of our home, the silence pressing in on me. I felt a weight lifting, but it was accompanied by a deep sense of loss. I realized I wasn't just mourning the relationship. I was mourning the person I thought Melissa was, the love I thought we shared. Days turned into weeks, and as I tried to adjust to life without her, I found myself reflecting on everything: our relationship, the good times, and the moments that led us to this point. I started to understand that, while Melissa's choices were hers alone, I had also played a part in the disconnect between us. I reached out to Mike once more, wanting to talk through the chaos swirling in my mind. "I don't know if I should try to save the marriage or if I should just cut my losses and move on," I said, running a hand through my hair. "It's a tough decision, man, but remember, it's about what you want too. You deserve someone who respects you and values your needs," he replied. "Yeah, but I still care about her. I don't want to throw everything away without giving it some thought," I said, feeling torn. "Just take your time, Jake. Think about what you need, not what she needs. You'll figure it out." Mike reassured me, and as I hung up, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew I couldn't rush this decision. The next few weeks were a process of healing, self-reflection, and trying to understand what I wanted for my future. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts and feelings onto the pages, trying to make sense of the chaos in my mind. I also began to reconnect with old friends, seeking support and guidance from those who cared about me. It was during these moments of reflection that I realized something essential. I needed to prioritize my own happiness. I couldn't keep holding on to the past. Eventually, I found the strength to confront my heartache and prepare for whatever was next. It was time to decide whether to fight for a love that felt so broken or to let go and reclaim my happiness. As the weeks progressed, I found myself in a strange state of limbo. Melissa had stayed with her sister for a while, and though I missed her presence, the distance offered me a chance to breathe and think without the constant reminder of betrayal looming around every corner. I focused on my own needs and began to carve out a routine that revolved around my well-being. I hit the gym more regularly, picked up old hobbies, and even started reading again, things I had neglected while I was wrapped up in our marriage. But even amidst this newfound freedom, the emotional weight of what had happened lingered like a shadow. I often found myself questioning whether I could see Melissa as anything but the woman who had betrayed my trust. Could I ever look past the hurt and rebuild what we had? One evening, as I sat at home flipping through the channels, I received a text from Melissa. It was simple, just a few words. "Can we talk?" My heart raced at the thought. What could she possibly want to say now? After several weeks apart, I wondered if she had taken the time to reflect just as I had. I replied, "Sure, when?" "Tomorrow evening," she suggested. "Okay, see you then." The next day felt like an eternity. I spent the hours leading up to our meeting in a mix of anxious anticipation and dread. I didn't know what to expect. Would she come with regret and apologies, or would she simply try to defend her actions again? As the clock ticked closer to our meeting time, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. When Melissa arrived, she looked different. Her hair was tied back in a loose bun, and she wore a simple dress that accentuated her figure. Nothing extravagant, but it was clear she had put some thought into her appearance. As she entered my home, I noticed a hint of vulnerability in her demeanor that hadn't been there before. "Hey," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine briefly before she looked down. "Hey." I motioned for her to sit down, my stomach twisting with anxiety. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "About everything, about us." I nodded, allowing her to continue. "I know I made a terrible mistake," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to express. I can't change the past, but I want to take responsibility for it. I've missed you, Jake. I've missed us." Her words hit me hard. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a flicker of hope. But I was also guarded. "You've missed what we had, or you've missed me?" I asked, trying to gauge her sincerity. "I've missed you," she replied, her voice firming up. I realized now that I was running away from facing the issues we had instead of confronting them with you. I wanted the excitement of someone new, but it was all a facade. I was just trying to fill a void. I studied her, searching for any signs of deceit, but all I saw was raw honesty. "And what did you find?" I asked, leaning in slightly. "I found that the excitement was temporary. It never compared to what we had," she confessed, wiping away a tear. "I don't want to lose you. I want to work on myself and us. I've started seeing a therapist on my own, and I know it's going to take time and effort, but I want to try." Her admission stirred something within me. I had often hoped she would take this step, but I had also felt so betrayed that I wasn't sure if I could trust her intentions now. "You say you want to try, but what does that mean for us? How can we rebuild trust after what happened?" "I know it won't be easy," she admitted, wiping her eyes, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you I'm committed. I want to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve." I took a deep breath, the weight of her words hanging between us. "I need time to think about this, Melissa. I can't just jump back in without knowing that you're serious about making changes." "I understand," she said, nodding earnestly. "I know I have to earn your trust back, and I'm willing to be patient. I just hope you'll give me that chance." As we continued to talk, we delved into the roots of our issues, the neglect, the communication breakdowns, all the things that had contributed to the cracks in our marriage. It felt cathartic to finally address these topics openly, without the weight of anger clouding our conversation. Later that night, after Melissa left, I sat down and reflected on our discussion. I felt torn, a mix of hope and skepticism swirling within me. Could we really rebuild what had been lost? I thought about what Mike had said. I deserved to be happy, but I also cared about Melissa and the years we had shared. I decided to give it some time, as painful as it might be. I didn't want to make any rash decisions in the heat of the moment. Instead, I would focus on healing, both for myself and for whatever future we might still have together. In the days that followed, Melissa and I began to rebuild our communication. We talked more openly, meeting regularly to discuss our feelings and the path forward. It was slow going, but I could sense a shift in her perspective. She was focused, determined to show me she could be the partner I once loved. Yet, I knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Trust would take time to mend, and I had to guard my heart while remaining open to the possibility of reconciliation. As I navigated this delicate territory, I reminded myself that I was worthy of love and respect, no matter the outcome. Ultimately, this journey would be about rediscovering who we were, both as individuals and as a couple. And while the scars of betrayal would always be a reminder of our past, I hoped we could forge a new path together, one built on honesty, respect, and genuine care for each other. The journey wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to take the first steps forward. As weeks turned into months, I found myself on a journey I never expected to take. Rebuilding a relationship after betrayal was complex and layered. It required patience, honesty, and a commitment to facing the uncomfortable truths that had contributed to our downfall. Melissa and I had started to create a new version of our relationship, one that was raw and real, tapping into feelings we had long ignored. We continued counseling, both as a couple and individually. I realized that therapy was not just about healing from betrayal. It was about learning to communicate effectively, understanding our emotional needs, and recognizing patterns of behavior that had driven a wedge between us. I found myself becoming more aware of my own feelings and the ways I had neglected my emotional health during our marriage. Melissa, too, was making strides. The therapist pointed out that she needed to take ownership of her choices, and for the first time I saw her truly grappling with the consequences of her actions. It was painful to watch, but it was also hopeful. She began to open up about her insecurities and fears, and slowly I could see the walls she had built around her heart crumbling. Trust, however, was not easily earned back. There were nights when I would lie awake, replaying the past in my mind, wrestling with feelings of doubt and fear. Would she stray again? Could I ever truly forgive her? Each time I experienced a moment of doubt, I reminded myself that healing takes time and that it was okay to still feel hurt while working toward forgiveness. One evening, as we sat on the couch, I turned to her and said, "I still love you, but I'm still scared. I don't want to go through that pain again." "I understand," she replied, her voice steady. "And I'm scared too. I know I've shattered your trust, but I want to build it back brick by brick." We spent hours discussing everything: my fears, her regrets, our hopes for the future. We acknowledged that while we had a long way to go, we were no longer in this alone. We were partners in the truest sense, working toward a common goal of healing. Eventually, I began to feel a shift within myself. I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story, they didn't have to define our future. I learned that love is not just about the good times, it's also about navigating the storms together. One day, while sitting at a park bench where we had often come during our early relationship, I took a deep breath and said, "I think we're making progress. I can see us starting to build something new." Melissa smiled, her eyes shining with hope. "I believe that too. I want us to be stronger than before. We can be a team again." As weeks turned into months, we started to regain our connection. We would take walks, share laughter, and slowly allow ourselves to dream again. We discovered new ways to connect with each other, often surprising ourselves with the depth of our conversations. I would catch her looking at me with warmth that reminded me of our early days, and it filled me with a sense of renewed hope. Yet even as we moved forward, I remained cautious. I knew that healing wasn't linear and there would be ups and downs. There were still moments when old insecurities crept back in, and I had to remind myself that it was okay to feel vulnerable. One evening, during a particularly heartfelt conversation, Melissa turned to me and said, "I want to make a promise to you. I promise to always communicate, to share my feelings, and never let us drift apart again." Her sincerity struck a chord within me. "And I promise to listen, to be patient, and to work on myself too," I replied, feeling a sense of commitment blossoming between us. As we continued to navigate our journey, I found that I was learning to forgive, not just Melissa, but myself as well. I accepted that I had played a role in the challenges we faced. We both had to learn how to be vulnerable and open, to admit when we were wrong, and to seek help when needed. Eventually, we found ourselves standing at a crossroads once more, but this time, it was a choice of hope rather than despair. We had both grown, both healed, and now we looked at our relationship with renewed appreciation. In the end, I realized that love is not just an emotion. It's a commitment to continuously work on yourself and your partner. I had learned that relationships require effort, empathy, and understanding. And while the past would always be a part of our story, it didn't define our future. As I looked at Melissa, I saw not just the woman who had hurt me, but the woman who had fought to rebuild with me. I realized that our love, while tested, had not only survived but had the potential to flourish anew. And as we moved forward together, I felt a sense of peace knowing that we were both committed to nurturing the bond we shared. No matter what the future held, I was ready to face it, with Melissa by my side.